Our next speaker, because we're out of time, is going to speak about, well, whatever he feels like. From MediaMind, my good friend and a snappy dresser, Dean Donaldson.
Okay, hello. MediaMind. My role and job within the company is to try to understand what consumers are doing, how things are moving forward from an advertising technology perspective, and how we can turn that round to sort of give the agencies the very best solutions from a technology situation. You can tell from my accent that I'm not from around these parts, so as a result of it, I feel that I've got a bit of a situation to start pushing out the politically correctness vibe. And the first thing I want to do really is to sort of think it's not just about video engagement, sorry, video everywhere. It's very much about engagement everywhere. And I want to take us through a journey in terms of how we're going to get through that and what that means for an industry. So I'm not going to apologize for PowerPoints. I don't use it anyway, I use Keynote. But the fact is, you're actually able to sit there and take in 35 frames per second, 35 photographs every second. That's how fast your brain can work, and that's why I'm going to throw loads of stuff at you very fast. And so the first thing I thought I'd sort of throw with, who's seen this film? See, we're engaging now and you're not touching. See, engagement in the online industry has been bastardized into this phrase that we've made interaction in a physical sense. And everything we know about engagement is not touch related, and it's not going to be as we move forward. What we've seen is, even in the course of this film, is how radically entertainment content has had to change as technology has got underneath it, and continued to change, and will continue to change. Digital thinks it's got the cusp of innovation. But actually, we've been through massive changes already through the television industry perspective. It just means that we've been doing it a little bit shorter from a digital perspective to what television already has been doing. But where we are at right now is this situation of as on air becomes online. And this convergence, this power situation that's going to happen is going to have huge ramifications. Infrastructure, agency buys, technology, rollout, publisher-broadcaster relationships. There's lots of different implications that we're going to have to try and work through and figure out. You look at the press right now, everyone's screaming, going, oh, cord cutting. You know, they're all suggesting this digital D-Day is going to be coming around, that we're all going to stop watching television and go online and we're going to look at it for free of charge. And as we just heard from Adam, that's not necessarily the case. The TV companies are not going to let go of something so easy. And so this whole idea, which may sound brilliant from a digital perspective, is such an untruth that we have to address it. But television, as we sort of go back there, is those social, lean-back experiences. Guys, TV hasn't been leaned back for the last 20, 30 years. You've been choosing to get involved with it, choosing to interact with content. And now you're choosing to interact with all sorts of content in new and exciting ways if you took a trip around CES this year. And so this whole idea about what we mean by lean back and lean forward means, the video content may be leaning back, but the experience is very much leaning forwards. We're all hyped in the industry as if Apple's going to change television and deliver this 50-inch TV, interactive television that's going to change the world, and everyone's got down their own wish list of what they would like to see happening on it. And this is kind of the new big, rumor in terms of everyone's sort of looking at that in terms of what that's going to be. But it's not the only one. Google themselves, I reckon, by the end of this year, will have 50% of all manufacturers carrying an Android system. TV is changing. It has to. You can't lock down software on a television the way that we did with the mobile early days, because what happens is if I just spent $2,000 on a new TV at Christmas, and then Netflix decides to go and open up in the UK, my TV's suddenly redundant. And so I've got to the ability to software and enhance it and change televisions very quickly because it's the most expensive electronic device purchase that I do. TV purchasing. You kind of look at this situation. 21% of us bought a new TV in the last year. It means 30% of them are now connected. Whether directly or through your Blu-ray player or Xbox or whatever else you're doing, it's about this connection that's already happening. And when we sort of move into this next thing, it means that TV has changed. See, TV is a geography, it's a place, it's a function. It's not the box in the corner of the room. It hasn't looked like a box for the last 10 years. And with it changes the impact of what we actually mean. It's just video content. It's linear, exciting, engaging video content that is served somehow. And also part of that means the evolution means we're not looking at content and ads, but apps. As we start to look through, sorry I wasn't going to be politically correct, it means we run into the situation of a planet of the apps, where apps are going to become everywhere, including on your television. Television channels may just become another app, in the same way as your magazines and newspapers already are. In the fact that every single web page I go to right now says, your experience is better if you download the app. And so suddenly this whole shift of what we know of online and digital and the web being open is suddenly beginning to be kind of condensed and locked down through apps again. TV will see a situation the same way. And so when we start looking at sort of television, apps are going to be a huge driver. And according to Best Buy, they reckon that sort of last year, 30% of their televisions were smart. They anticipate that to be 90% by 2015, which is all great and wonderful, except for the fact that you don't change your television very often. You see, you change your mobile every 1 to 2 years, your laptop every 3 to 4. Your TV you don't change until 7 to 10 years. It's a long time before we're in a situation where we can fully utilize the technology, and who knows what else will happen in the television marketplace by that time. So it forces us to have to look to companion devices, whether that's the set-top box or the mobile device in your hand. And that's what's going to happen, isn't it? Those set-top boxes are going to become wireless. They're going to be portable. They're going to reinvent the remote control. Picture-in-picture across devices. And suddenly this opens up a situation of what we really mean by connected television. Is it just really that TV that's connected? Or is it the TV itself, that box, just going to become another dumb monitor? And there are different schools of thoughts on both things, because we feel that the content will be carried around and streamed, and there may be other ways to look forward as we start thinking about technology. We've already seen it, those discs turning onto a box. The way we saw music 10 years ago, photos 5 years ago, is very much now about film and television content. And as a result of that, we're seeing that moved it up to the cloud and back down, pumped to our television and across devices. Technology is forcing us to look at things in new ways. And one of the ways you look at it is the fact that you've just got now 4K televisions being launched. 4 times the power of what we've seen. It's ultra-high definition. And so at CES, they were talking about this. In fact, some people were talking about 8K television. And so as quick as we can get a handle on it, these things change. Now, what does that mean? Bandwidth, infrastructure. TVs are getting bigger. And so we can sit there and talk about the power of this television set and the PC being connected together and this online seamless integration. But the reality of it is that 91% of internet traffic will be video by 2014, in 2 years. That's just 2 years away. Today it's 40%. Such is the explosion. And as we start to connect more and more devices and more video, there will be ramifications. Spectrum has got to be released. The infrastructure has got to be rechanged. It wasn't built for this situation, especially as all those discs are becoming digital. You put it into your Blu-ray device that says, do you want to store it on the cloud and stream it? And you can, and they said the electronic sell-through is going to grow massively, exciting, but it won't compensate for the disc declines of the home entertainment industry. We have a challenge. And so as a result of that, we have to look, as we were talking about earlier on, to the way these over-the-top services can sit there and deliver, at the end of the day, advertising. It's all about advertising. It's the only answer on how we're going to sustain stuff moving forwards. By the time you get to 65, you'll have spent 14 years watching television, video content. 14 years. And, you know, we sit there and talk about the average US consumer 5 hours a day. You're spending glued to that television set, or at least it's on in your background. And even when you sort of look at the new younger generation, they're still spending 3.5 hours. Yes, we're seeing a shift. They're moving to web, they're moving to mobile content. So it's not really this whole, you know, cord cutters. They may be reducing certain services. Maybe a newer generation will never go on and pay for it the same way. I'm not sure I believe that. But at the end of the day, all we know is you put technology in a room and TV viewing goes up, not down. And as we were just talking about there, this viewing that we kind of look at it in terms of the way it's broken down is we're wanting that live content because we have to keep in sync. We need to know what that storyline is. It may be different for dramas. But in terms of those football or anything else that you're watching, we want to keep in touch with it. And so when we start breaking that down and we look at that video online weekly, that's where this whole idea of this cable subscription's coming in to cut. But something's an interesting trend working in an ad technology company is those ads that you're all buying and serving out on the web, well, guess what? In 40% on some of those campaigns, they're organically being shifted to mobile devices. Just because you're using your smartphone and your tablet to look at stuff rather than your PC. And so these are not being sought or bought, so sold or bought as mobile campaigns. They're just organically being accessed by them. And so when you start thinking the mobile industry, you start realizing that you've either got the 1-2 approach, you know, where you have to go through the networks, or you just serve it direct. And that's the shift that we're seeing up here. Now, there's a cost, speed, complexity issue of the ones at the bottom. But the value is that it's always on flexibility. The reality is, the only way you're going to get anywhere near an interactive experience before 4G kicks off is Wi-Fi. And we've already been there, paying for data, paying for advertising. Hello? Why on earth would I pay for your advertising? Your advertising should be giving me something free, not come out of my data plans. And so what we're seeing is, yes, 4G may come in. 2 megabits will reduce up to 100 megabits. You can download a HD movie under 5 minutes at that point. You see, it's fascinating how broadband is today. 4G isn't about Facebook, it's about video. And the reason why I've sort of looked at that is because television is exactly the same. You see, there are 2 ways of serving stuff out. You go through the linear broadcast managed operators, or we sit there and we serve stuff direct. There's a difference between web TV and IPTV. And as we can sit there and debate and look at those other situations in terms of what it means. The argument is, well, the guys at the bottom, they're all closed, they're controlled, they're proprietary, but they sit on premium content. And they're sitting on content which they're not going to let go of easily. You see, we talk about YouTube throwing millions of dollars on the table and saying, well, fine, we're going to build our own content. We're going to start creating our own stuff, just the way that the cable operators did when television changed from terrestrial to satellite. And so there's a situation right now where YouTube is saying, fine, we'll create our own niche content. We're not going to buy it, we'll just create it our own, like Sky TV did. The other situation is, well, force the guys to unbundle content. You know, in terms of, we're not going to buy albums, we're going to buy singles, I want to buy a TV show. But the reaction is that we've got this TV everywhere. You see, the television companies are already one step ahead. They're going to move things into a situation where they can turn around and say, well, fine, we're paying for that distribution, we're paying for that money up front, you're going to have to throw more money at the table if you're going to break that barrier. But they're sitting on a solid user base, an infrastructure, and a quad play. You're buying your internet through your TV companies. And so the idea of online video can still get locked down at the bottom level. That's why people like YouTube have seen BBC iPlayer pulling content off, and Disney have pulled Toy Story 3 off Netflix, reducing them to a secondary player. Because they don't want to upset the distribution system that already exists within the television marketplace. Now, Apple could come down and lock it all down via their OS again, as we've seen with mobile. And yet, interestingly enough, we're seeing this actually happening now. People are saying, we don't want to start paying television to Apple for their distribution rights. And then interesting, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is Intel's come down and said, fine, we're going to lock down the chips. We want to move into the smart television areas as well. And so you've got this massive situation, this flux going on right now about how things are changing. We're getting content in three ways: live, free, or paid. Okay? And so if that's the case, the way we used to see everything linked down before has suddenly found that the creation actually wants to go straight to the end consumers. Those people who are making it actually want to go further up the food chain, become aggregators. The aggregators want to start serving things everywhere. And so what you're finding is this: everybody wants to do everything. The distributors want to lock down the whole system. And so what you're turning around and now seeing is this complete mix-mash of content and creation, and who owns what and who does what in the infrastructure right now. And then we have a whole load of other players who are either creating content or becoming aggregators. Television is radically changing. And so this ecosystem really just comes down to very simple: the buyers, the vendors, and the sellers. And when we start looking at that situation, we start seeing this. This is the inventory. You've got the high-end costs at the top, and you've got the cheap giveaway stuff at the bottom. And each one is starting to move into the other player. But what we're seeing is that the actual curve of who owns the content and how it's working follows an S-curve. And we're starting to see that people shifting, but at the end of the day, those premium content qualities are still going to be locked down. Especially when you sort of look at the economy of the advertising industry. Mobile will become what online is, and online will become what television is. But online and TV is narrowing. And with that, we start to see all sorts of things happening. Rich media stagnating to be replaced by DR or video. Video, 7.7 billion online video. And when you break it down further, it means in-stream is going to become the new powerhouse. I know I'm out of time. It means that publishers want to start hiking up their CPM costs again. It also means we start breaking it down as we start to look forward. That narrow down is going to still be very much controlled by the premium content players. So when we start looking at how this is all going to be broken down over the next few years, we can see that actually the premium players, the television everywhere, is going to be done because, as we've turned around and said, it's easier to find content. It's not about free, it's about convenience. And so therefore, if you think of it in these terms, you've got traditional over here and online video over there. You have subscription and advertising. And when you start looking at this middle ground, this TV everywhere, this is the television industry to turn around and say, right, if you want convenience, we're not going to let these guys have it. We'll give you the convenience for an increase in your subscription and for more advertising. And so suddenly the television is able to control this online video explosion, turning stuff out everywhere, called TV everywhere. And that is really the absolute powerhouse in terms of what's actually happening. And when you sort of look at the data in terms of projections for that, you suddenly see the growth of the costs of television everywhere, both in terms of subscription and advertising. Let me just throw one question at you. But there's something to be aware of here. We've been here before. We've seen this whole direct response measurement situation. As we start to move into these connected devices, as we start to look at new ways to measure that television, we go away from that assumed audience measurements into knowing what device you've got in your hand, and it creates a two-way return path. You potentially can show you how bad television is at actually reach. You're also knowing that TV, social media, is the most biggest thing talked about, and as a result of that, the content producers are moving into television. I just quickly want to show you a couple of things on technology before I move in.
Hey, Dean, we are way way out of time.
All right,
and
no
we got
worries.
a panel coming up. So maybe we can revisit this during the break.
Sure,
And
that's fine.
we definitely, there's so many questions to be asked. It's almost unfair to you to let you go this fast because I can't assimilate, and I'm not that stupid. I'm having trouble getting all these numbers in my head. So maybe we can just work at this
Slow
during the
it
break.
down a little bit.
Well,
That's cool.
what I need to do actually is we need to move into your panel if
No,
we can.
sure. Well, let's move the panel up. That's great. That's fine.
Awesome. All right. So let's give Dean a big hand.
Thank you.
And what we're going to do now is let the panel come up on stage, but we have a sponsor video because you can't be here without the gracious dollars of, well, this is really, there are 4 revenue models in our business, right? There's advertising, which we all know about, subscription, merchandising, which we're going to get to here, and of course lawsuits, which we're about to have because we're going over. So just if you give your attention to the monitors and we can see a sponsor video and everybody pay attention and buy their stuff.
It seems like every day, a new video gets hot online that you just have to see. Like 15 seconds of a cat speeding down a hill on a skateboard wearing a melon helmet. But here's the thing. Before you can watch your 15-second video, you're forced into a 30-second pre-roll ad. You know what I'm talking about, right? One of those commercials you have to sit through before you can finally get to the good stuff? Yeah, and this happens every time you watch a video online, no matter how short it is. Over and over and over again. I mean, seriously. Someone please have mercy. 'Cause most people don't enjoy watching a ton of ads online, which is why most pre-rolls have a skip this ad option after 5 seconds. 70% of people take this option, and the rest are usually too busy checking stock quotes and texting their BFFs to care. So all that expensive ad space and work goes down the drain. All right, so the people over at Solve Media thought, let's make the brand message the key to the content. Yeah, what a concept. So now, instead of flat out ignoring an ad, viewers can speed past it by typing in your valuable brand message. You know what? They'll remember it. And actually, feel great about it. This type of cognitive approach lets people get to their content faster, ensures the ad leaves a lasting impression, and earns publishers more money. Talk about video advertising that makes everyone smile. Come partner with us at solvemedia.com.
Hey.